Welcome everyone to Going D1 Real Recruiting Stories. I'm Joel Groom. We have Gunnar Groom here, and we're very privileged to have Coach John Shanahan joining us from Laguna Beach football, who, we've been friends for years, and he's done some amazing things there. I would say that, last year you guys were state champs. Is that right?
And CIF champs. We actually lost. We won our first CIF championships was 1946 at Laguna, which is a long time.
Yes.
And we lost in the state regionals to a team from Los Angeles. I think the final score was 56-55, something crazy like that.
Right.
And the state running back of the year ended up going on to Utah to play for them, which it was a pretty exciting, fun night for us. But we fell a little short, and then this year went 9-2. And we lost in the first round of the playoffs, but again, we won our third straight league championship. So things are going the right direction for Laguna Beach football.
Yeah, and in terms of so it's pretty shocking. I think one of the things that you've been able to do there is compete against bigger schools with a smaller student body, and so it's been kind of amazing to watch. And I think a lot of that has to do with how you prep kids and get them in the system early, and really are creating a whole program for the community, and that feeds into the high school. But one of the things that I think is really interesting is Orange County is dominated by the Trinity League, which is obviously private schools, and the sheer number of athletes that come out of Orange County and LA County for schools around the country is quite large. And I guess one of what I would say is one of the greatest accomplishments of yours is getting two of your players, I believe multiple Power 5 D1 football scholarships offers coming out of your program. And I guess, similar to not winning a CIF in 46 years, I'm not sure the last time that occurred in Laguna Beach, but I would love to hear a little bit about how you think that how you were able to do that, and what do you think was some of the keys to these guys getting to that level and having that opportunity?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think the biggest key in today's dynamic, I guess the best way to put it is measurables, right? If kids fit those measurables, and the two particular kids that we have, Reiner Swanson, who was supposedly number one on Texas's board, number one on Oregon's board at tight end, number 2 or 3 on Alabama's board. Could have gone anywhere he wanted to go, but is a devout Mormon, and he ended up at BYU. And then our junior quarterback, senior 2B this year coming up, got a bunch of offers. But when he got the offer from the University of Washington and got to meet those guys, jumped on it pretty quickly, especially for quarterbacks, because it's there's just a finite amount of slots, right? So you got to jump a little earlier as a quarterback. He jumped on that quickly because they're such great guys up there, great coaches, but great human beings. But both those guys fit the measurables, right? Reiner 6'4", 245, 240, runs 21 miles an hour, can squat the world, can bench the world. So that part was easy. They saw Reiner and fell in love with him right away. Quarterbacks is kind of a totally different dynamic. One of my favorite stories to tell about our quarterback is Reiner, our kid who ended up at BYU, is such a devout Mormon, such a great kid. He wanted to commit before spring, and he's like, Coach, I think it's immoral if I go on the trips to Texas and go on the trips to Oregon, knowing that 99.9% I'm going to go to BYU. These guys are going to spend money on me and my family to come down there.
Right.
And he goes, I don't know if that's the right thing to do or not. Hey, but listen, these guys want to take their shots. You've earned it. Get on a plane, go down there, enjoy your opportunity in Texas, enjoy your opportunity in Oregon. But most importantly, we need you not to commit before before spring, because we need a bunch of these coaches running around here, run around our practices to watch our quarterback.
Right.
Nick Sheridan, an incredible guy who's the tight ends coach at Washington, comes down to watch one of his spring practices, and luckily Reiner didn't comes down to watch one of our spring practices.
Right.
And he looks over at me and says, "Whoa, coach, who's spinning the ball? Who's throwing the ball right now? Is that the same kid you had last year? You told me about it." Yeah, he's really good. He standing right next to me, gets on the phone and calls Coach Grubb up at Washington, says, "Hey man, you got to get on a plane, get down here tomorrow." So he jumps on a plane, flies down, watches some of Jackson's film from the previous season, and comes out and watches him throw for 20 minutes in our spring practice, and walks over and offers, and gets on the phone with Coach DeBoer and says, "I'm going to offer this kid right now," and walks over and offers him after 20 minutes of watching him in practice. If Reiner commits and Coach Sheridan doesn't come down to watch him practice that day, it could be a totally different story. But because he was a great teammate and cared a lot about doing what's right for him as an individual, but him as a teammate, he got Jackson an incredible opportunity, and now Jackson's going to get an opportunity to go play at, I think one of the top 2 or 3 schools in the country when it comes to quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's an amazing story, actually.
It's a good one.
I think that was one of the things I've noticed, with both Gunnar and Bowden, is that, the coaches are coming for one particular kid, and a lot of times that opens up opportunities for other kids. And I saw that particularly in football, because football is such a team game that you can't succeed without multiple pieces of the puzzle. And so, wow, that's great. And so I think, one of the things that I've heard from a lot of guys is in football, there's an eye test, and Reiner kind of passed that eye test as a freshman or sophomore. I don't know, how big was he as a freshman?
As freshman, he was 6'1", 180, 190. But as a sophomore, he was 6'3", 210. He's such a young pup. He's not one of these Trinity League guys that's a double holdback. He just turned 17 back in July. So
Wow.
he's still a baby, right? And now
So he'll graduate.
He's going to leave. He's going to graduate in at the end of this semester and go up there early as a little kid. He's 17 years old. He's going to go up and be at BYU in the spring here and practice with them in the spring, and then play 1 year of football, then go off to his mission.
Okay.
Which is going to be great for him, because like most kids, everybody's a holdback nowadays. It's going to level the playing field for him a little bit when he gets to step out and do his mission for a couple of years. Right.
And in terms of the development, do you feel sort of one of the things, I would say he stood out in the program early, and do you think that was beneficial, or do you think that was, I guess a drawback? Because I think sometimes you want kids to stand out, but the competition's got to be strong enough to make an impact or make a name for yourself as well. Do you think that that was a lot of your work, or do you think that's situational? Because at least my experience, there are schools that have coaches visiting automatically, and then there are schools where they're trying to find a particular player or something like that. So I'm curious your thoughts on that and how that kind of evolved from your perspective.
Yeah, I think the Reiner situation is a pretty unique one. He didn't play. He wasn't going to play his freshman year, but freshman year was COVID year. I had a kid walk up to me, I think it was in November or December, and say, "Hey, coach, I got a buddy that wants to play football." I'm like, "Okay, is he a good kid? Do his teachers like him? Does mom and dad like him?" "Oh, he's the nicest kid you're ever going to meet in your entire life."
Right.
Okay, bring him out. But if he's our kind of guy, bring him out. And he walked out. And I thought when they walked out the next day, I thought this was an older brother that was in college. He was such a big, fit kid. And this is my buddy Reiner who wants to play football. I was like, "Whoa, okay." And he was the nicest, sweetest kid you ever met in your entire life. So he was pretty raw to football. And I think that playing at Laguna Beach, or a small school, small town, really benefited him. Right. If he was at Mater Dei or at St. John Bosco, I don't know if he gets the opportunity, because there's so many guys that are so much more experienced, developed, that he probably sits behind those guys and doesn't get a chance. But playing at a small school, we threw him in there, and initially our coaches put him in an offensive line because it's the easiest thing to learn in a month before you play your spring football season during COVID. But we saw him kind of before practice just throwing the ball around and catching it. I was like, whoa, this kid can catch the ball. He's got good natural hands. We're moving him to tight end.
Right.
And some of our coaches were reluctant, like, no, we need him playing
We need
offensive
him,
line. Yeah. But it wasn't what was best for him. And it wasn't what was best for us long term. So he got an opportunity to fail a lot at Laguna Beach. Because we don't have a bunch of other options, right? Does he have that opportunity to fail at these other schools? I don't know. I don't think so. We have these conversations all the time with coaches, families.
right.
So I think that it was a perfect storm for him, coming out and playing at Laguna,
Right.
being a big kid, a great kid, and getting a chance to play the position that he wanted to play, tight end. Again, I don't know if he gets those opportunities at one of these Trinity League schools because he's behind 2 or 3 guys that are so much more experienced that he doesn't get to catch 150 balls over 3 years at varsity and scored 40 touchdowns, which allowed him, I think, to really evolve and grow as a player pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting to me. I think that's a double-edged sword for a lot of football players. Is they want to be in a program that has exposure, and they want to be, but they also want to be the man. And it's a hard balance to strike. I think, to be honest, I would say that you played a part in that because although it's a small program, you're well connected, and being in Orange County is probably positive. So there are a lot of things that help to create that. And I know you know coaches around the country. So that's also something that I would say, you probably don't take much credit for, but that is something that's somewhat unique, given the size of the program.
Yeah. And I think it's part of Orange County. Guys fly in from all over the country to recruit Orange County. They hit the big 6, right? The Trinities. Then they'll hit some of the publics that, for all intents and purposes, function as privates. They have transfers in from everywhere, the Missions and the San Clementes, and there's great guys run those programs, great football programs, but they, function as privates. They're allowed to take transfers from all over Southern California. So they'll hit those 10, 12 schools. But everybody's running around looking to try to find the diamond in the rough, right?
Right.
Mostly they're looking for, that big offensive defensive lineman.
Yes.
So they're knocking on doors, and if you're an Orange County kid who can play, an LA kid who can play, you're going to be seen. It's just part of being geographically, we're in a great spot for kids. Now, if you're out in the middle of California, somewhere out in the middle of Wyoming, the Josh Allen type stories, you may not get seen. But if you're in Orange County, you're in LA, you're gonna get seen. And with Huddle now, there's plenty of film for coaches to get a chance to dissect you and see if you're a good fit for their program.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I had a conversation with, I think I mentioned him, Teddy Anderson was working with my youngest son, Torsten, and he said that now there's so much Huddle information, there's so much Instagram and other ways of promoting yourself that at the end of the day, you can get promoted in a lot of different ways. But getting people eyes on you and passing the eye test is critical after the initial piece. So I think, that's obviously a great thing about Southern California. And I'm sure that's the case in parts of Texas and Florida. So
Ohio,
it's,
maybe.
yeah. I don't know the Midwest as well. I was actually talking to a friend of mine in Chicago about that. And he said, if the kids are big enough, they're going to come see, if the kid's 6'5" and 300, they'll come look at them from anywhere in the country.
I got a question. In terms of his development as a tight end, over the years that he was in the program, do you feel like he made the most progress kind of like physically in terms of strength and speed and quickness and that kind of thing, or was it more of him like actually learning football and learning how to be a tight end, because obviously he hadn't played before? So do you think that those were both kind of equally developed, or was one a lot more developed than the other by the time he became a senior that really helped him out?
I think in Reiner's case, it was much more physical.
Okay.
You know, we're pretty vanilla on offense. We're a 3-by-1, 2-by-2 spread team. He was a flex tight end. We had him run some. You know, we had him run some second puller on counter, you know, a number of times, which helped him a little bit of a kick on the backside of zone. But for the most part, just him physically running routes, thousands and thousands and thousands of routes, and we throw the ball more than anybody in practice. You know, the only school I've seen throw it more than us is Centennial out there, and Coach Logan. And I went out and watched a couple of their practices about 10 years ago and saw how much they threw the ball and really liked it. So we throw the ball as much as anybody. So his physical growth, repetitions over and over and over again, I think was the where he had the most growth. He has a lot. A guy that's only played, you know, a little over 3 years of football, he still has tremendous growth. A kid that's only 17 years old has tremendous growth potential at the next level. And I think that the sky's the limit for him. If he loves football and wants to stay with football, I think we're going to see him playing on Sundays for a long time.
For sure. And did that physical development and, you know, being in the weight room and doing all of that running, was that natural for him? Was he like all in on that, or was it something that he was kind of hesitant about, but, you know, he wanted to be better and he did it?
Yeah, he's all in. He
Oh,
was
yeah.
one of those special kids that, you know, it's tough. Like he's 6'4", 240,
Yeah.
And he's running as many routes as a 5'10", 165-pound kid. Those little guys can run all day long. Sometimes you know, the guys that are big, their bodies, they get banged up a lot more. It's a lot more to run. You know, that's a lot of weight for a 17-year-old kid to be running around. Never complain, never whine. Ran more routes than anybody in our program over the last 4 years. So he was committed to it. He battled through injuries, not injuries, but he battled through soreness and made himself the best he could possibly be.
Wow. Interesting. So I guess I'd like to shift gears a little bit on to Jackson, because I know Jackson is less of a I guess unicorn. Reiner seems a bit that whole story seems a bit more of a unicorn story. Jackson was a kid that has been playing, you know, I guess Pop Warner and football for a while. Dad's kind of trained him quite a bit, and he's got a great arm. But I think at the end of the day, playing in your system probably was very beneficial for him. And I know that you and his dad are close. And I guess I'd love to hear a little bit more about his story getting to those offers and where, you know, kind of the rationale of different things that they did, because they used to, I don't know if they still do this, but they run the flag football in town and are heavily involved with a lot of different things within the program, more or less. How do you think, you know, what were the steps that he took that really helped, and how do you think that led to his development, and how did your team contribute to that too?
Yeah, you know, this is another kind of unique story, and the Colics share the story pretty freely, so I feel like I can speak to it. When Jackson, I think he was in 6th grade, he had a little sister that passed away from SIDS, and he was in a pretty dark place. You know, his dad came to us at the football field and said, "Hey, listen, we'd love it if just something you could do. Maybe you could throw with them. You can have him hang around the football field and the team. If there's anything you can do to help get him go in the right direction, we'd really appreciate it." He wasn't a football player at that point. He was more of a baseball player. You know, big, strong kid. He's a kid that probably get up on the mound and throw 90 miles an hour. But obviously, we said absolutely, we want to help any way we can possibly help. So he started coming out, and he threw with the kids, and he would hang out with the high school kids, and that was his first kind of experience with football. So he's still pretty raw for an Orange County quarterback, and you understand this with Torsten.
Yep.
Most of these guys start like in second grade, they're getting private quarterback coaching.
Yeah.
So he was out there with us throwing and played some youth football and was a big, strong kid and pretty raw. And we thought he was going to come to Laguna Beach right away. But again, the lure of the Trinity League or some of these big publics, they came after him pretty hard to come down to Santa Margarita his freshman year, and he went. We were disappointed. We wanted him there as our quarterback. We thought it was the right fit for him to be a quarterback in Laguna Beach. But he went down to Santa Margarita, was their freshman quarterback, had a good year, but he got banged up a little bit. I think he got a concussion and had to sit out a little bit. But then I think the grind of driving an hour every day each way down to Santa Margarita from Laguna Beach took a toll on the family. And Santa Margarita wasn't completely committed to him being a quarterback. They thought maybe he should play a different position. So
Right.
Jackson and his dad came back and said, "Hey, listen, we want to come home." I said, "Come on home, let's go." And we had this is last year, and he had to sit out for 5 games because of the crazy transfer rules that we have in CIF, because the family didn't move.
Right.
But we had a good senior quarterback last year that we thought was going to be our guy, and Jackson was going to kind of sit behind him for a year, then play this year as a junior. But that first game, when Jackson was sitting out, we took our team to Idaho last year, and our starting quarterback broke his collarbone. Right, we had to battle through that game and battle through the next 4 games with a diver, a kid that never really played quarterback, but that's all we had at that point. And this kid jumped in and did an admirable job. But Jackson finally got his chance in week 6 or week 7, I think it was week 7. And flourished. He was great, threw 31 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, and was physical and really put some great stuff on film. And again, another scenario where I think if he's at Santa Margarita, he's not playing quarterback as a sophomore, right? He's sitting behind somebody or playing JV, and he doesn't get the opportunity to really show what he can do. So his journey back to Laguna Beach High School was great for us, and he's going to University of Washington to play quarterback. It's been great for him as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fantastic outcome, and I can relate to the trying to gauge where you get the most exposure, and sometimes it's can be counterproductive. As you know, my son Gunner's brother went to Mater Dei and found it to be frustrating to some extent, where he would be a star in some places and ended up playing, but not as much as he wanted. And so that's
where is he still playing? Is he still playing?
He is at Rice University.
What a great spot! What a great spot.
He's like the number 30 tight end in the country at this point, and his numbers have been phenomenal. He's probably in the top 20 in terms of receptions and yards. This past year,
I'm getting a world-class education.
Yep, that was really important to him, which I suppose is probably parents are influencing that a bit. But he's going to get a great degree, and he's playing with interestingly Christian McCaffrey's brother. So there are a lot of pro scouts showing up. So it's kind of interesting to watch that dynamic. But
what are his measurables now?
In terms of size, he's 6'4", maybe 6'4.5".
245.
245, 250. He's gotten heavier and leaner, which I believe, one of the things that I found shocking about Reiner is he was a lean 245 in high school, which you don't see too often. So Bowden's done really well. I think specifically because he's a very good athlete and has great hands. So when you get into these programs, a lot of these guys are big, but being very good, very athletic is a differentiator. I mean, he has great jumping ability and good speed. I think, I don't know what the miles per hour are, but I think he's like a 4.6, 4.7 kind of speed, which is very competitive at that level.
Oh yeah.
So, it's just kind of interesting, the different stories, and I thought, Jackson's in particular, I think they made the decision that he would get more exposure at a smaller school than he would at a bigger school. And, I think Orange County is a pretty unique place in terms of, guys coming to town to see all the different players. Um, in terms of, Laguna versus sort of Corona Del Mar, and I know you guys know those guys, and that's where you live anyway. So, do you feel like there's a difference in terms of exposure or opportunity that stands out with Laguna and the style of the scheme or anything like that kind of contributed to it in a way that I guess Jackson benefited? I guess you alluded to it in terms of throwing at practice. Do you feel like that was kind of instrumental for his development and what Washington was excited about?
I do. I've been lucky enough to coach for some really good coaches: Jim Hartigan, Myron Miller. Getting a chance to really watch out and watch that Centennial practice. I think that we run about as well a practice as you're going to be able to run in one of these small publics. Like I said, we throw the ball more than anybody, and coaches who come through there who watch us practice all say the same thing. Like, wow, you guys get so many reps in such a small amount of time.
Right.
And I think part of that comes from coaching a lot of baseball when I was younger, right? You got to swing the bat a couple times a day, right?
Right.
You got to feel a couple hundred grounders a day. If you think you're going to go out and become a great thrower by throwing 40 or 50 times a day, no, it's not going to work, right? You got to throw the ball over and over and over and over again, and hundreds of times every single day. If you want to be a great shooter in basketball, you better shoot the ball 500, 1,000 times a day. If you want to be a great golfer, you better get out on the range and swing the club hundreds of times a day. So we take that model and we plug it into football, and we just throw it and throw it and throw it, till our kids can't run anymore. And then we do static throws, right? Where we put a kid out there and he takes a laundry basket on one side, and the quarterback has a laundry basket on the other, and we take the 20 footballs and we're throwing static balls over and over and over, because we've seen it work. Our last three quarterbacks we've had: Andrew Johnson, all CIF, threw 43 touchdowns. Will Bingham, all CIF, threw 44 touchdowns his senior year. Jackson Collick and our group of guys 2 years ago threw 46 touchdowns in the season. Jackson threw 41 touchdowns. So we have to throw it because we're tiny. So we're going to work at it every single day. And I do believe, and some of the feedback I get from some of these Division I coaches, that it works. Right, doing something over and over and over again, you're gonna get better, whether you want to or not. You are gonna get better at it, because just repping the heck out of it, it works.
And so, that's an interesting point. How many throws do you think your quarterbacks are making during a practice? 100, 150?
250 to 300.
Really? Okay.
Yep.
That's much bigger than that's a much higher number than I've heard from a lot of guys.
That's probably a great way to get to know your receivers and tight ends and all those guys too, huh?
Yeah, you can figure out what they can run, what they can't run, what balls they can catch, what balls they can't catch. And then even with the quarterbacks, I think that it's kind of like the Nolan Ryan approach to throwing. That guy could throw 160 pitches over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? We've never had a kid with an arm problem ever. Which is, people are like, oh my God, you're going to wear his arm down. I go, no, we're not. We're going to strengthen their arm, and he's going to be able to do it. So with all those kids we've had, we've never had an arm problem. And again, like I said, we throw it more than anybody.
How do you? And that's it's a big number. How do you strengthen it rather than hurt it? Do you work up strength in terms of distance and volume, or how does that approach work?
Yeah, obviously, you got to do a great warm up, slow warm up, and be ready to go. But then again, I think with all these modern quarterback coaches teaching all this off platform stuff, different arm angles,
Yeah. It's terrible, right? Sorry.
I do.
That's my opinion.
And I agree. And I keep asking these guys who are, Division I quarterback coaches and offensive coordinators, are you teaching off platform stuff? They're like, no, 95% of the throws we're making are on platform. And occasionally we get a guy scrambling around, making an platform throw.
Yeah.
I think that, making sure they have great sound fundamentals. Obviously, the football motion is way easier and on your arm than the baseball motion. But
Yeah.
being on platform with solid basic fundamentals, you can throw a football all day long. Now, if you just start to get these weird side angles and off platform stuff, I think you can tweak an arm because your arm's not used to it. But when you're throwing it consistently on platform, good basic fundamentals, you can throw a football all day long. They can swing a golf club all day long. Again, it's just staying with the fundamentals, having that consistent repetitive motion, I think allows that arm to go and go and go.
Right.
I had a lot of fun with Grubb and Sheridan, the offense coordinator and the quarterbacks coach and the tight ends coach from Washington. They were down on Monday, and I got which was great. They're getting ready to play in a playoff game, but they sat there with us for a couple hours, and we had these conversations about college football playoffs and who should be in, who shouldn't be in. Those guys you're functioning in that place. Yep. So it's been fun to kind of have those conversations with those guys.
Definitely.
What did they think about the selection?
They said FSU got screwed, but Alabama's probably the better team.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it is weird because there was that one play where I can't remember the guy who caught it, but Milroe threw the back of the end zone to win the game at Auburn, and essentially that that play shook up the whole thing, which is kind of crazy that it comes down to that one play.
Yeah, because I don't think Georgia gets in with a loss to Alabama. If Alabama has 2 losses, right? I don't think they get in there as the 4th seed. Who knows? We could be wrong. The SEC, they generate so much money.
Yeah,
they do.
And also regarding the Heisman, the Heisman went to the LSU guy, and LSU is nowhere near the playoff. Did Washington have anything to say about that?
I didn't see them after that.
Okay. You saw them before it came out.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to hear that comment. I think, by the way, I think that's a great opportunity for us to have that discussion, right? Jaden Daniels, a Southern California kid,
right?
Inland Empire, went to Arizona State, and then goes on to transfer and had tremendous success down there. So dynamic, made himself probably $20 million this year, right? In the draft, because he had such success. And I think that's kind of where college football is going, right? I mean, unless they put some boundaries around it. If you don't transfer twice and you're a good football player, you probably didn't learn anything in college, right? You get your NIL money at school, number one, you become a really good football player. You put your name in the portal. Now you're going to make exponentially more, right? And then you go on to that school and have a great a couple, 2-3 years, and you grad transfer, put your name back in, and you can make exponentially more. This system is insane. But I think it's going to allow a lot of kids opportunities to go to smaller schools, right? They're not getting the Division I offer. Go to a smaller school if you really believe in yourself, excel, do tremendous things, and then you get a chance to go make a lot of money in college and go on to play in a big time Division I football program. And having some of the conversations with some of the FBS guys or FCS guys, that's part of their recruiting model now. Like, hey, listen, you come to our school, we're going to make you really good, and then you're going to get a chance to go and play in an FBS school and make lots of money. I thought that was the craziest thing I ever heard in my entire life. You're going to really help these kids get good, and then you're going to send them on their way. But that's part of their model to get kids who don't fit all the exact measurables. Maybe they're 6'3" or 6'2 3/4 and 225 pounds. Dalton Kincaid, a kid that started at USD, right? As tight end, ended up going to Utah. Didn't have all the measurables right away, but proved he was good. Then moved on to Utah. Now is going to be an all pro in the NFL. So I think kids have as crazy as this model is, I think some lesser kids, lesser measurables will have more opportunities to play at that level that they want to get to if they're committed and they're willing to put in the time and work really hard and show that they're great at the FCS level. Then they'll get a chance to go on and play at the FBS level and make all the money they want to make.
So
Yeah.
So going back to, your coaching, I had a question about, when guys come into your system and you see freshmen, maybe sophomores, and you're kind of watching them in practice and you know who your starting guys are going to be. Are there like certain qualities that really stand out for guys who you see them and you kind of think like those, they're really going to be able to help us down the line with some development? Sort of like, what are those intrinsic values that they would have, I guess, like character wise, that you see like, okay, they're going to be a good fit, they're going to help us out?
Yeah, I for us, the way we practice, so high tempo, so many reps, work ethic is the thing.
Work ethic.
If you are willing to work, you're going to become a really solid high school football player. Whether you like it or not, you're going to be pretty darn good. If you catch 25,000 balls over 2 or 3 years, and that's what you're going to catch when you're playing with us, you're going to become, your hands are going to get pretty darn good, right? It's just a matter of committing yourself. I love the story about our kid 2 years ago. This kid, Luke Degner, he came in at 90 pounds as a freshman, was crying, wouldn't get out of the car when his dad dropped him off for this first summer as coming in as a freshman. He committed himself between his sophomore year and junior year, and then really committed himself his junior year going into his senior year. And I had to tell him to get off the field sometimes. We'd finish practice at 5:30. He's out there at 8 o'clock at night running routes, and he really wanted to play college football. And there's a spot for him for these types of guys everywhere. He ended up going to Division III, but went to got into the University of Chicago, I think a top 5 university in the world, right? Because of football. And their head coach calls me and goes, "Whoa, you just send me anybody you want. This is the hardest working kid we have in our program." So he just willed himself into being a great football player. And now, has changed the arc of his life and his kids' lives for generations, right? When you go to University of Chicago, that's a difference maker, right? And he'll go on to be in their business school, right? He's the top 20 in his class. He's killing it. And because of football, his work ethic, he's changed the scope of his life. Which has been really fun to watch.
Yeah. I think ultimately that's one of the things that sports open up doors that didn't exist or that don't exist through other avenues. And competing purely on academics is quite frankly very difficult and
impossible. There's
a lot of randomized selection when it comes to some of these schools. And so my theory is that without a secondary, I guess, skill or a contribution to the school, you're having to play the odds of whatever the admissions counselor is feeling that day, which is never a good place to be in as a student or as a parent. I wanted to ask you specifically. So I grew up in Chicago. Gunnar spent most of his youth outside of New York. The Southern California opportunity set is very different than some of the other areas of the country. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on sort of how other people can do some of the things that you've been able to do with your kids in whether it's Iowa or suburban Chicago or, Massachusetts, something like that. Is there still an opportunity to execute on kind of the high volume, high rep plan in a different location? Or do you think that they really need to do something else in terms of either moving or playing for a private school somewhere? Or how would you solve that problem if you were in a different part of the country?
That's a tough one. I think that obviously the weather really affords you the opportunity to rep the heck out of things year round here. We're not a big year round program. I was a baseball, football, basketball guy growing up. I think kids playing multiple sports is fantastic for them, their overall athleticism. So I think guys in Mass or Chicago or wherever these guys are, they can start in May, and it's the weather's fine. You know, I mean, it still can be a little chilly, but you can get out on the field in May and go May, June, July, and really rep the heck out of football. Excuse me, rep the heck out of football. And be ready to go when it comes to August and September football. So I think you can recreate that model pretty much anywhere in the country. I do think, like baseball players, if you're going to be a multi-sport guy, you're going to be a baseball football guy, you still got to swing the bat, 30 minutes a day, at least 2 or 3 times a week, right? If you're going to be a basketball guy, football guy, you still got to get in there and work your dribble, work your shooting, work the really detailed skill set year round. And again, for those sports, you can do it, and you're in a gym, or you can get into an indoor baseball hitting facility. But with football, it's a little harder. But I think quarterbacks need to throw the ball year round. They can't just drop the ball from December to May. The arm won't be ready. So quarterbacks are kind of the outlier when it comes to football. But for the rest of the positions, I think you can go May through November and be a darn good football player and get as many reps in as you need. So yeah, I think that model can be recreated across the country.
Interesting. Okay. And in terms of your experience with some of the guys that have experienced success, whether it's Luke at University of Chicago or Jackson or Reiner, was part of that the showcase model and going to these schools? Was that a piece of the puzzle, or was that something that just really didn't come into it for them?
Yeah, I think it's pretty individual for kids. Luke got that opportunity for University of Chicago with his senior film. He didn't have any offers going into senior year. He was little. He's 5'11", 170 pounds at that point. Now he's crept up right about 6 feet, 185. But there's a million Lukes running around, right, that look the exact same way. But he put up some really good film. Like he caught, and we're in a great spot. I'm the offensive coordinator and the head coach, and Luke said, "Coach, I really want to break the single season receiving record." And I'm like, well, "What's the record, bud?" He's at 73 catches. I'm like, "Okay, if you work really, really hard and you're committed and you're a great teammate, we'll break it." He goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "We'll break it." He goes, how are we going to do it?" I go, "Well, I get to call the plays, bud. So I can call some plays. If we get to 65 and we need to get 10 more catches, we'll get those 10 catches. I promise you." And he broke it. Ended up with 74 catches. Right? It was awesome. So his journey was very unique. And if you want to play some Division III football and you have great academics, you can do it. Reiner's he showed up at a couple of camps, and people were like, "Whoa, this guy is astonishing." Like they couldn't believe it, right? Like you said, he's 6'4", 235 at the time, running around, catching balls, running every route you can possibly run. So his was more camp driven. And then we already talked about Jackson being the lucky recipient of guys recruiting Reiner, and they just, a couple of guys had to see him sling it. Anybody that came out to our practices and saw him spin the football were mesmerized. They couldn't believe, like, the ball spins as well as the ball spins as well as any college quarterback, right? We had a kid when I was coaching at J. Sarah who didn't start on our freshman football team. He was on the reserve freshman football team that played on Saturdays, and they only got 6 or 7 games. Cameron Bynum. He left J. Sarah as a junior, went back to Centennial because the drive became brutal for him. He's the starting safety for the Minnesota Vikings now, right? A kid that was tiny, probably 5'4" and 110 pounds as a freshman, right? But was so committed to working hard and being a great human being. Ended up going back to Centennial, starting, grew to 6'2", went to Cal, became an incredible safety at Cal, or corner at Cal, excuse me. And like I said, now he's running around the NFL, and he's going to get paid a lot of money because of his incredible work ethic. So I think all of these journeys are unique. So I think kids need to do everything, go to camps, hang around with your successful peers, right? If a guy like a young quarterback, if there's a guy that's being recruited that needs to have the ball thrown to him, get out there and throw to him. You don't like the Aaron Rodgers story, like he was a I think he was a JUCO guy in where was it, Montana or one of those, Wyoming or something, and a tight end needed somebody to throw to him because he was getting recruited by Cal, and the Cal recruiter's like, hey, I'm going to take you and the kid that's throwing the ball, right? So
right.
do everything because you don't know what your path is going to look like.
Right. Well, that's one of the things, one of the hopes of this podcast is to essentially drive home that point, which is every journey is different. And the ones that you hear about, the guys that have like the 20 offers and on the signing day, switching hats, like there's just very few of those kids, and most of the stories are very different and very circuitous. And there's an element of, I guess, luck or divine intervention, depending on your perspective. And
taking advantage of all the opportunities that you get and making the most of everything you got.
Yeah. And I'm a big proponent, guys, of staying and playing in your hometown, because you're going to get a chance to play a lot more quickly than you would at one of these schools where, they have 50 Division I players. But you also have to consider what your skill set is, right? I coached back in Tustin High in the early 2000s. We had more guys on NFL rosters than any high school in America, Sam Bakers and Frosty Ruckers and Deshaun Fosters. I mean, if you're a quarterback, you can't go to Tustin High because they ran the ball every single play, right?
Right.
If you're a running back, Tustin was a perfect fit for you. So I think like we talk about individual paths. I think again, if for Laguna, for example, we're going to throw the heck out of the ball. We have a bunch of kids that grow up in Laguna that want to be receivers and quarterbacks. It's a perfect fit for these kids, right? We have a private school down in San Juan Capistrano right now. They don't throw the ball. They're not going to throw the ball. Their quarterback's a phenomenal running quarterback. So if you're a receiver to go to that school, it's almost sad to watch. If you're going to catch 10 or 12 balls and you're in a season and you're a really good receiver, but you're not going to have the incredible fun high school experience that you want to have, and you're not going to get a chance to showcase your skills, right? So you got to find a school. In a perfect world, your local school does what you want to do, and they do it really well. But if they don't, then you go find a school that fits your system, like what you can shine in, and then go there and work your butt off and be the best you can possibly be.
Right. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap it. That was an awesome summary, John. And thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time. It was great to catch up. And
great to see you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
And what episode is this, Gunnar?
6. I put it up at the beginning, but you didn't say it, but it's okay.
Well, thanks for joining.
Yeah, do me a favor, guys. Can you send me a link to the first 5? I'd love to see the first 5. And
I'll email you a link to the YouTube channel.
Perfect. Love it, guys.
Great.
And so thanks, guys. And I guess signing off for Going D1 Real Recruiting. Guest was John Shanahan from Laguna Beach Football with Gunnar Grun and Joel Grun. Appreciate the time, guys.
Thanks, guys.
We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.